Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Allow me introduce myself. My name is Raka Pratama. I'm from Class B English Education 2019. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to explain about 5 hypotheses of second language acquisitions. The first, the acquisitions learning hypothesis. This hypothesis claims adults have two distinct ways of developing competence in a second language. The first way is through language acquisitions, namely by using language for real communication. Language acquisition is a natural way to develop linguistic abilities and is a subconscious process. Children, for example, are not necessarily aware that they have acquired language. They are only aware that they are communicating. The second, to develop competence in a second language is through language learning. Language learning is knowing about a language or formal knowledge of a language, while acquisition is subconscious learning conscious. Learning refers to explicit knowledge of rules, being aware of them, and being able to talk about them. This type of knowledge is very different from language acquisition, which can be called implicit. Okay, the second, natural order hypothesis. This hypothesis states that grammatical structures are acquired, not necessarily studied, in a predictable order. This implies that we will see similar traits among acquirers. Certain structures will acquire earlier, while others are acquired late. One of the parts of grammar is best studied in a language acquisition is English morphology. This is a finding that maps out that there is a natural order to English acquisition for children who acquire English as a first language. The natural order for subjects today appears only under certain conditions. It may not appear when we give another grammar test, but it appears with and when we focus adult on communication. Our claim is simply to illustrate the hypothesis of the natural order with a concrete example. There is research in other areas of grammar. Okay, the third, monitor hypothesis. This hypothesis states that conscious learning has a very limited function in adult second language performance. It can only be used as a monitor or an editor. The hypothesis says that when we produce speech in a second language, it is started by the acquired system, and our conscious learning only comes into play later. A very important point about the monitor hypothesis is that it does not say that acquisitions are not available for self-corrections. Research also shows that monitor does a better job with some parts of the grammar than with others. Okay, the fourth, enter hypothesis. This hypothesis states simply that acquiring, not learning, language by understanding input is slightly beyond our current acquired level of competence. We think this hypothesis is very important because it tries to answer acquisition questions that are important both theoretically and practical. How do we acquire language? The input hypothesis states that listening and reading comprehensions is very important in programming language, and the ability to speak or write fluently in a second language will come with me. The input hypothesis states that in order for the acquirer to progress to the next stage of target language acquisitions, they need to understand the input language that includes the structures that are part of the next stage. Evidence for the input hypothesis and the associated net hypothesis comes from a variety of sources, including research in children's language acquisition. The input hypothesis is consistent with other phenomena in a second language acquisition. Okay, the fifth, affective filter hypothesis. This hypothesis states that attitude variables relative to success in a second language acquisition are generally directly related to language acquisition, but not necessarily for language learning. The research literature shows that certain affective variables are associated with second language achievement. Performers with a certain type of motivation are usually, but not always, integrative, and with a good self-image are better at mastering a second language. Also, the best situations for language acquisition seem to be those that encourage lower level of anxiety. The reasons affective factors were hypotheses to be directly related to acquisition is that, in general, they appear to be strongly associated with the second language achievement when communicative type tests are used. Tests involving acquired systems rather than learned systems, and when students take tests have found the language in an acquisition-rich situation. That is, mastery of a second language in the country rather than learning a foreign language exclusive in traditional classrooms. Okay, I think that's all from me. If you found mistakes in my explain, please forgive me. The last I say thank you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.